Hello, Internet,
Hello, Internet.
and welcome to another edition of the Rope Break Podcast. I am your host, Chris, saying if you're gonna fire someone, the easiest way to do it is just not tell them.
Yeah,
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
topical. This is Rob saying, colored commentator and collared commentator are not the same thing. Just saying.
And I'm your third person, named Horrifically Sick. And I'm sick.
Indeed. And today's topic, it's been 20 years in the making. Monday Night Raw is our topic. 20 years as of January 11th.
Wanted to talk about SmackDown.
Well, you know, we were going to say after 20 years of Raw it would be funny if we talked about SmackDown, but we'll save SmackDown for another time. We got to wait 20 years before we talk about SmackDown, god damn it.
When can we talk about Smoky Mountain Wrestling, damn it?
I don't know. But yeah, Raw, Monday Night Raw, it's been 20, it's not felt like 20 years because obviously I've not watched it for 20 years. Raw came out the year I was born, and obviously WWF had been around for a lot longer than that. But that was the first very... did anyone watch Raw back then?
Anyone here? No.
I started watching in 2000.
Earliest time I started watching was about 98. Yeah, 98. So, a few factoids, just in case. I thought that maybe we wouldn't know much about Monday Night Raw when it started off. I have seen the first episode, because you can actually watch the first episode on YouTube. It aired on the USA Network, and it was only 1 hour long. That just shows you how things have changed. A 1 hour long Raw. It televised professional wrestling. It was more about the wrestling than the storylines, which is weird. And they were actually taped on sound stages or at large arena shows. And Raw was, that's how it originally was. Instead of taped matches, however, with studio voices and tape discussion, Raw was shot and aired to a live audience, and that's how it's taped these days. But that was actually the first show to do that. It taped matches shown to a live audience and then played out angles as they happened. First episode featured Yokozuna defeating Koko Beware in the opening match. The Steiner brothers defeated the Executioners. The Intercontinental Champion at the time, Shawn Michaels, defeated Max Moon. And The Undertaker defeated Damien Demento in the main event.
And for some reason, Doink was at ringside.
Yeah, the show also featured an interview with Razor Ramon, and for some reason, Doink was running around at ringside. And
this is face Doink, not scary heel Doink.
Actually, I think this was heel Doink at the time. He was heel Doink. Yeah, he was heel Doink.
He didn't seem scary.
No, he was heel Doink at the time because I remember them. I've seen the first episode. I might be getting confused with some of the other early episodes because I've seen basically the first, I guess you could call it, season of Monday Night Raw, the first year, the 1993 year, and I think it was the first episode that they showed like a clip of him on Superstars, or was it Saturday Night Main Event back then? Actually, I think they called it Superstars back then as well. I'm not sure. Might have been I know it was something Superstars, but anyway. And he basically attacked a guy with a fake arm, and yeah, I think that was heel Doink. It also
he just didn't seem as scary as regular Matt Bourne Doink.
I don't know. I don't know. The first episode also featured Bobby Heenan trying to get into the building.
Yes.
Which that was the funniest fucking thing ever. When he was dressing up as the woman and the
rabbi.
The rabbi, and you couldn't get away with that now. You could not get away with that now. which is weird that you couldn't get away with that now, even though that was family-friendly WWF back then. And Raw wasn't one of those shows that went from place to place. Originally, it was just shot at one place, which was the Grand Ballroom at the Manhattan Center in New York. And for the first few months, they had Vince McMahon on commentary, along with Macho Man, Randy Savage, and some comedian dude.
Yeah, he sucked.
Who really fucking sucked. His name was Rob Bartlett, I think it was. And this was the guy they decided to put on commentary at the time instead of Bobby Heenan. I was like, this guy. You're starting to televise professional wrestling. Try and bring it out to a mainstream audience, because before it was territory days and it wasn't really mainstream, and people kind of stuck to their territories. And
well, this is after Hogan, I believe.
This is after Hogan, yeah.
So it is much more mainstream than it was.
Much more mainstream, but you're kind of trying to make it a worldwide thing, and you started off with some awful comedian. This guy, God knows, he was only on there till April, I think, but God, that's possibly the worst commentary I've heard.
It does need to be said, though, that Vince McMahon, back in the day, was one of the greatest commentators out there.
Oh, hell yeah.
One of the best interviewers and commentators, and he would just pitch softballs to people for interviews, really. He's like...
Literally.
Tell me... You would just sort of... Like the Jimmy Snuka interview about Don Morocco, he really helped that interview, I think.
Yes, definitely. Oh yeah, Vince McMahon's one. Rob Bartlett, I'm saying, is the worst commentator I've heard in wrestling.
Really?
Yeah, he's worse
Mark
than Cole.
Madden. Mark Madden doesn't stand up there, or...
Well, you know what? As bad as Mark Madden was, his jokes were at least tolerable. Rob Bartlett just kind of threw shit at the screen hoping it would work.
Alright, so...
Vince McMahon, definitely a great commentator. Macho Man, he was being Macho Man. I can't really complain about that. Sean Mooney was the interviewer at the time, and Bobby Heenan also interviewed around then. But also, something that changed over the years. Do you guys remember the Raw girls?
No, I do not.
Okay. The Raw...
Was that similar to the Monday Night Nitro girls?
What the Raw girls would do, where you know how in boxing matches they had ladies come out and parade signs about the matches and that? Well, instead of that, the Raw girls were ladies who'd parade around in bikinis and stuff, like the people in women in boxing and that. But instead of like saying, you know, match 1 or something like that, or match 2, they'd have signs like in between matches that often use the term Raw as a pun. Like one of the signs was open wide and say Raw.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And the way they'd introduce Raw every Monday night was something like Vince would be like, "We're here live and we're uncut," and then Macho Man would be like, "Uncensored," and then Rob Bartlett would be would say "uncooked," and Monday Night Raw. They'd use Raw as a pun almost every fucking Monday Night Raw.
Get ready for salmonella, because we're going Raw.
Yeah, stupid little puns like that. They'd use Raw as a pun in these signs. And then I'm thinking maybe there's a reason they got rid of those ladies with those little signs.
And so I guess we...
Another one of the sign examples was, "I like my Monday nights Raw," which was just awful.
That's somewhat better than the open wide and say Raw.
Open wide and say Raw was the worst one I
don't know why, but I just turn your head in Raw keeps coming to my mind.
Turn your head in Raw. That might have been one.
So I guess we have to speed this along up to the year where we have to go to a big mistake that WWE made in the first place, which was signing Lex Luger.
think that's a big mistake any company's made in the past. WCW, WWE.
But at the same time, they made Luger a star.
Wasn't he the narcissist back then?
Yeah. Whatever. They pushed Luger up.
Yeah.
And here's the pivotal turning point in the history of Raw, which is the opening of Monday Night Nitro, wherein you turn on Raw and you see Luger, and then you turn on Nitro and you see Luger.
Oh yeah.
Huh?
Luger double-crossed them. And this is the start of everything has to be written down in a contract because some guy screwed them over on a handshake deal. That guy being Lex Luger.
I forgot about
So he literally did Raw, then went to fucking Nitro and
Dude,
showed
they
up.
couldn't have they couldn't have pushed Luger any more than they did, okay? The first guy they had Luger feud with when he debuted, Mr. Perfect.
Jesus.
And Luger
Of all people.
was the one, and Luger was one of the first guys to beat Yokozuna.
Great career move.
I'm gonna double cross the place that has handed me everything on a plate and head to this stupid company.
I might be a talentless hack and they might have gave me
Well,
everything
to
on
be
a silver
fair,
platter, but
to
I'm
be-
gonna leave them.
To be fair to Luger at this point, which I never thought I'd say, when Ted Turner offers you a shit ton more money,
Wasn't it the...
Motherfucking Ted Turner. He owned his own freaking cable company. It's Ted Turner.
yeah, well, technically Eric Bischoff was the one who dealt with you, but Eric Bischoff is stealing Ted Turner's money and giving it to you. You take it.
It's true.
But that being said, what Raw offered thereafter to their talent was a promise of being able to progress in the company and earn your way up, from what Foley said. That the locker room was very much together. There wasn't infighting because they were up at the 8 ball, and they had to make decisions. And I know we were going to do Monday Night Wars on a separate thing, and I guess we're just briefly not going to really mention what's going on at WCW, so we'll talk about Monday Night Wars at a separate time.
Monday Night Wars another time, but
But this
will
is
have-
Meanwhile, at
in the history of
WCW.
Raw.
But what I want to know, like some of the characters back then, if you showed this to a wrestling fan today, for example, and if you showed this, I mean, people in the company say back then that, oh, it was a different time and era, there was a lot of jokey characters. If I showed Doink the Clown to a modern wrestling fan today, they could not take that character seriously.
The thing about Doink, though, is when Doink was played by Matt Bourne, very talented wrestler, and when
No relation to
And
Evan,
Doink-
obviously.
Doink was a heel, he was one of the scariest heels out there. His facial expressions were absolutely frightening.
Yes.
He is the closest thing wrestling has ever gotten, besides the blatant ripoff that Sting did in TNA, to the Joker.
Yeah, I can see that. Not the Dark Knight Joker, but I can definitely
Yeah,
more like
just
yeah.
Vanilla Joker.
Vanilla Joker, thank you. I couldn't think of a way to word it. Vanilla Joker, yes.
but he was definitely like the same kind of psychopathic
Clown.
evil character.
Yeah. But I'm saying if you showed some of the characters that were in WWF, I'm gonna call it WWF because it was the WWF. Screw you, Wildlife Fund. I love friggin' Bobby Heenan's rant about the WWF when he talked about Hall of Fame. That was hilarious. If no one's heard that speech, Bobby Heenan's Hall of Fame speech, you need to find that because the rant he does on the Wildlife Federation Fund, fucking hilarious. But anyway,
I still think that WWF should have adopted after that a picture of a wrestler suplexing a panda. I think that would have been.
Well, both WWFs have been around a long time, but we'll get to that, I guess, some point. Other characters. Now, was this guy always a joke, or is it just he's seen as a joke now? Duke the Dumpster Droese.
I really don't know much about Duke the Dumpster Droese, honestly. I haven't seen many of his cameos. You could say a lot of those were a rib at the guy, but as Dusty Rhodes talked about the polka dots,
he basically carried a garbage can to the ring every match. His gimmick was that he was a garbage man.
But as Dusty Rhodes talked about some of these gimmicks and stuff, he said when he was given the polka dots, he was sure that Vince was ribbing him anyways. But he looked at himself. He put on the polka dots. He looked at himself in the mirror and he said, "This thing is gonna get over." And that's what you gotta do. You gotta. And
that's what you had to do back then, because fans were more accepting. If you donned polka dots in today, I doubt that would work. Can you imagine that? A guy like CM Punk or John Cena coming out in polka dots and being the WWE champion?
Yeah. Well, actually, Cena could pull it off. Cena's already goofy. Cena's already goofy as shit, so it doesn't really matter.
Okay, you see like an up-and-coming superstar in polka dots, you think that's gonna get over in today's world? If it's Dusty Rhodes making like a guest appearance, it's like, yeah, you sport those polka dots, Dusty, but if it's any other wrestler, then what the fuck is this guy?
I mean, Cena's ring gear is like, at this point, it's like, who cares what he wears? He's gonna be goofy as shit anyways.
I've looked back at old WWF Monday Night Raw, and it really is just a whole weird world of what the fuckery. What the fuckery?
The Red Rooster.
The Red Rooster, Doink the Clown, Duke the Dumpster Droese, Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Why did that guy get a job?
Isaac Yankem.
Oh. They had the Raw Girls, which was weird. I didn't know they had that. I never knew they did that. They had a band briefly called the Raw Band, and it was called Doc Hendricks and the Raw Band, and they would perform music in between segments on the show. But that was in about 1995, and that only lasted like a few months.
So we have to talk. I think we have to talk about the stars that made Raw what it is.
Stars that made Raw what it is from that era. The stars that made Raw what it was from that era. Are you on about, or in general?
Well, I was going to say in general, but I was going to fast forward a bit. But did anyone? I think the only one that stands out in that era that. Okay, well, actually, no. Jake the Snake. Well, I don't know. Was this the time when was Jake the Snake really big thing before Raw, or?
Might have been a big thing before Raw.
Undertaker.
Yes.
Is the sole surviving member from the first episode of Raw who is still an active wrestler, somewhat.
Back then, Mr. Perfect, Shawn Michaels, Bobby Heenan.
But I think we have to move into.
We do have to move on because we don't know much about that.
We briefly touched on the conflict with WCW.
Well, the conflict with WCW is what brings us to the change that Raw made.
Oh yeah. Razor Ramon before we get into it.
Razor Ramon as well. Yeah, before we get into it. In 1995, the famous beginning, I suppose, to the Monday Night Wars, which is another topic, WCW started beginning its new wrestling show, Monday Nitro. Well, and Raw and Nitro obviously went to head to head for the first time, September 11th, 1995.
And Raw started losing terribly.
Raw did start losing terribly, and this brought it was a slow change to Raw, and instead of being it was changed, they changed the name to Raw is War because of the Monday Night Wars, and they were at war with WCW, and they had the idea that there'd be wars between the superstars and so on and so forth.
And during this time, and we'll touch on this again, during the Monday Night Wars, Vince started funding an up-and-coming company that always was shooting on him, called ECW.
Yes.
And from that, he took a few people.
Yes.
Notably Mick Foley. And one other person who was let go from WCW and had a famous shoot promo on ECW. In WCW, he was known as Stunning Steve Austin.
Yes, Stunning Steve Austin. Now, everyone just thinks who doesn't know wrestling that much. Like, for example, you go to Wrestling Today, they might just know him as Stone Cold Steve Austin. No, he wasn't always Stone Cold. No, not on Raw. No, you may remember a man named the Ringmaster in the history of WWF. That was Steve Austin. He was managed by Ted DiBiase, and he hated the.
We'll get to that. But what I wanted to say was, before that, he was a great technician, actually.
Yes.
In the ring. And that was his style. And he had a great tag team with Brian Pillman.
He had a great tag team with Brian Pillman. He also had a great feud with Brian Pillman on Raw.
Yeah, that was awesome too. But so we get to he gets fired, and we don't have to talk about the firing. That's been told many different ways.
Many different times.
But so he gets fired from WCW. He's still injured. And Todd Gordon, whether he had to mortgage his house 1 time, 2 times, came up with a figure big enough for Steve Austin. And we have Paul Heyman coach Steve Austin into an awesome promo. And WWF says they want a piece of that. And so he goes on to be the Ringmaster, managed by the great Ted DiBiase, who was also a central figure in Raw.
Now, before Raw started losing the ratings war, because it did go back and forth at first, what started the ratings drop for Raw was the NWO angle. After that started was the ratings drop for Raw, and the win streak that lasted 84 weeks for WCW, but again.
Well, I think we have to go to 1996.
Yes, 1996, probably when... we will have to talk about the Attitude Era in this. Everyone has a different opinion about when the Attitude Era started. Some people say it's when Austin first said Austin 316. Some people think it's the screw job. Some people think all the different opinions about when the Attitude Era started. And that the Attitude Era is associated with Raw is War. That logo, that arena, that whole image of Raw back then is associated with the Attitude Era. 1996, what are you going to say about that, first of all?
Well, first, into 19. What year was WrestleMania 13?
13. Oh, God. WrestleMania 13. I'm going to have to think about that for one moment.
Okay. Well, I'll continue talking.
Yeah, you keep talking. I'll find the year for you.
96.
90.
King of the Ring. One snake passes on to another. Jake the Snake.
97 was WrestleMania 13.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Then it passes on to that. Jake the Snake. Well, first of all, Stone Cold gets injured in the semifinals of King of the Ring, and he has to have his mouth sewn up. So he's out in the back. Well, Jake the Snake cuts a biblical promo on him in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
And then the finals happen, and Jake the Snake passes on to. Well, no, I shouldn't say passes on, because that would sound like he's dead. He's not. He's very well alive, and he's doing well. But he passes the torch to the Rattlesnake, who, after only a few moments in the back, thought up what he had to say. Where he says, you talk about your Psalms, you talk about your John 3:16. Well, Austin 3:16 says, I just kicked your ass. And he tells them to get the trash out of the ring. That trash being Jake the Snake Roberts.
Yes. I will agree that 1996 was probably the year that they started getting edgier.
I think you have, if you're talking about the Attitude Era in WWE, there is one man that is synonymous with the entirety of it.
And that's
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
That's Stone Cold. I don't know whether I can say he started it or what. I can definitely say he was the main guy of it. He's the guy everyone thinks of when they talk about it, yes.
Before the Montreal Screwjob, we had the lead up to Austin's character, really, before Mr. McMahon stepped in, was WrestleMania 13. His big face turn, which is one of the best executed double turns in wrestling history, where Bret the Hitman Hart turned heel and Stone Cold turned face.
That was one of the best matches I've ever seen in my life.
Also one of the bloodiest matches.
One of the bloodiest.
Stone Cold.
Yeah. That was the moment where he became loved by the fans no matter what he did, really.
Although he was being cheered during his
I know, but that moment as well was like, he didn't tap to the sharpshooter, he passed out. That assured him, basically, that assured him face heat, basically. He was going to get fucking loved by the fans for fucking ever.
And of course, we enter into that era, and we have to talk about a few things.
Yes.
The Montreal Screwjob happened.
Well, before that, I think we should go over they not just Austin, because Austin was, although a synonymous man with it, it wasn't just him. They were starting to get edgier in 96. So
I was going to cover D-Generation X next.
And DX as well, yes. They were starting to get edgier in 96. When did DX form?
Did they form after the Montreal Screwjob?
I'm sure whether it was before or after. I'm going to have to find that out. But 96, they were starting to get edgier. And probably the most famous controversial moment from I can think of 96 was the feud when they were engaged with it was Pillman and Stone Cold. And there's the scene where Pillman pulls a gun on Austin during the home invasion segment. First of all...
And that was where they crossed the line.
That's where they crossed the line at that point, was where they pulled the gun. Because although they'd done a whole thing with the gun but after that, years after, this was the first time I can think of that they'd done this. And USA Network, let's just say, were not pleased about this, not just because he'd pulled a gun on Austin, but because Pillman was also heard using the word fuck during the segment. And because Raw was live, well, it was either live that week or it was because of the live nature of Raw. They wanted to make it seem live. They uncensored it because they were still taping every other week of Raw at that time. So whether it was a taped thing and they left it to make it seem like it was live, I don't know. But it went uncensored and the network was not pleased, and they forced WWF and Pillman to apologize for the incident. So that's the thing that maybe started the edgier thing. We're gonna have this thing where he fucking pulls a gun on him, and we're not gonna censor this shit. He's gonna say fuck, we're gonna leave it in.
I will say, years later, WWE did the home invasion right when they had Triple H invade Randy Orton's house.
I like that scene though between Pillman and Steve Austin.
I think it just went too far. I don't think it went too far. And I think it works a little better in the Triple H Orton situation where you have just the face has had enough, and the heel has crossed the line so far that the face goes into his house and beats up everyone in the house, and then just gets arrested and taken away.
Yeah, 96. I'd say they were starting. The ideas were forming for the edgier attitude. 97 was probably where the match was lit and the torch fucking went ablaze. Then year 97. First of all, Raw went to a 2-hour format, and it had been 2 hours up until, obviously, I went to the 3 hours, which was a few months ago. Basically, I guess you could say a year ago, almost been a year. But it went to the 2-hour format, and they began using their edgier, more hostile attitude, because they wanted to obviously come over in the ratings.
Degeneration
sorry.
Formed in response to NWO. They had Degeneration X form, which was I will say this about Degeneration X. Despite what you might think of some of their members, the ideas were revolutionary. Who would ever think to have the muscle of the group be a woman?
That was a revolutionary idea, yes.
Yeah, that was revolutionary. Despite what you may think of China, which
you may think for now. Back then, you thought, yeah. Jesus Christ, this bitch is going to tear me in half.
Yes. And that whole controversy, the riding on the tank to the WCW thing.
They had the riding on the tank to WCW.
Where DDP was in the garage going, hey, let me out. I want to say hi to my friends.
They made fun of so many people. There's the corporation, there was the Nation of Domination they did, the whole parody thing. They swore. There was the whole
show us your tits thing.
The show us your tits thing. There was Shawn Michaels basically being naked, and they covered him up with signs. When they stuffed stuff down their pants and came out in just their boxers and sunglasses.
Was that in relation to his Playgirl shoot?
I don't know. I remember one thing where they're holding up a bunch of signs, and you just see Shawn Michaels' torso and legs, and he's jumping, and they're moving the signs to where he's jumping, and like he's doing the suck it sign and everything, and he's got a pair of sunglasses on.
Okay. So, yes, and you did touch on one other. When was the formation of the Nation of Domination?
Oh, God. Nation of Domination, well, I know it was was it? I think it was before, because DX, before it was called DX, was just referred to as the Clique, wasn't it? I think so. It was 96. I don't know when exactly in 96. It was 96. I think it was late 96, and I don't know how long it lasted till. I think it only lasted till about
The Rock debuted in what, 97?
Rock debuted in 97, late 96, early 97, something like that, yeah.
So, this is one of the stars that was actually, like, Triple H and Stone Cold. Stone Cold was refined to perfection during the Attitude Era, and Triple H really came into his own in the Attitude Era. But the one who debuted in the Attitude Era and became a mega star during it, which is saying something considering it only lasted a few years, really, the Attitude Era, was The Rock.
I never liked The Rock. I'm not gonna lie.
Back in the day, The Rock was awesome. I think nowadays he's lost a spark that he used to have.
You look back at the promos he gave back then, and you look back at him now. Only difference is he was a tiny bit more vulgar. That's it.
I disagree. I disagree immensely. And we're going to disagree on this because he used to have a major spark and intensity and drive to him.
I don't see it. I don't see it. I look at his promos now. I look at his like I used to like him in my mind. I was like, I remember The Rock. Like looking when he returned, I'm like, he's not as awesome as I remember him. And I went back. I looked at his Attitude Era promos, and I'm like, this is the exact same promos he's cutting. Same kind of promo.
Except that he used more. It was much more variety, if you ask me. Like the SmackDown Hotel promos were much more memorable. The fact that his feud, and I know it's hard to have a bad feud with Austin, but his feud with Austin was one of the definitive feuds of the Attitude Era.
That's probably the only thing I like of The Rock now was his feud with Austin. Not gonna lie. His feud with Austin was probably the best thing he's done. But back
his feud with the McMahons and as the corporation and turning against the corporation, I thought was pretty good. But the corporation angle, we're gonna have to get to this too. The corporation angle turned ridiculous.
Yeah, we'll get to that at some point. But back to 97 and them kind of lighting the fire of the Attitude Era, sparking that. Yes, there was DX. They had all these factions coming in, and they had getting edgier and edgier. They brought in ECW at some point, and
they didn't fully bring in ECW until after they bought out WCW, but
no, I mean there was that episode where they challenged ECW, and the ECW guys came over.
Yeah, there was that.
There was that episode, and they were performing ECW style matches for the audience. There was obviously then the Montreal Screwjob.
Yeah.
And that's the moment that the Vince McMahon character was created, because before that, he was just seen as an announcer. People kind of had an idea that he was an owner, but they didn't really know. He was just seen.
I bet occasionally someone referenced it.
Occasionally it was referenced, but people kind of just... They saw him as the commentator and the announcer. They didn't see him as chairman of the WWE as he is now.
I believe at some point before Vince McMahon was revealed, Austin referenced it at some point. Goldust or Rock referenced it at some point.
Yeah. But nobody... That character wasn't there at that point, so it was either forgotten or just... people just didn't take notice of it. I don't know. I didn't take notice of it. But after the Montreal Screwjob, you then had the Vince McMahon character, and the Montreal Screwjob, for me, is probably when the Attitude Era truly started.
Yeah.
That's for me. I don't know about everyone else listening. I don't know about you. But
provided that Shawn Michaels could almost never be cheered again in Canada.
could almost.
Especially Montreal.
It took years, decades, for that man to be cheered in Canada again.
And then we get after that, Bret Hart moves to WCW and is immediately forgotten there.
When it comes to the, you know what, we could make a whole topic on the Montreal Screwjob, so we will just dust over it in this episode, because we could literally talk hours about the Montreal Screwjob.
Yeah.
And whether it was right and wrong and each side and shit like that, and ugh. We don't need to talk about that.
No, I think it's been talked to death anyways.
It's been talked about for over a good 10 years.
So, after that, Vince McMahon character comes out. When was him screwing over, making Stone Cold vacate the IC title? Oh, that was after his match with Owen.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is also a turning point for Stone Cold's in-ring style, because he didn't turn full brawler until he took the wrong side of a tombstone from Owen Hart.
It wasn't a tombstone, it was just a normal power driver.
It was a normal? I thought it was a tombstone.
It was it was a power driver, it wasn't a tombstone. I don't know whether it was like a Texas power driver or a Spike power driver. They look the same kind of power driver to me, it's just different variations. It's like more force than some, or slower than some, or a faster one.
Okay. The point is, he took the wrong side of a power driver, spiked his head, and was really fucked up. That gave him knee problems to this day. And what is it with Owen Hart and accidents?
He didn't mean it. He just...
Yeah, I know, but it's just like...
It sucks that he never apologized for it. It sucks he never apologized for it when he didn't mean it.
Yeah. But... So, then we go to...
And we also had... I think this is important, another character from Raw. The debut of Kane was in It was in 97. We had the first Hell in a Cell match was in 97.
Who did Taker face in the first Hell in a Cell?
In the first Hell in a Cell match, it was Shawn Michaels.
Okay.
And Taker whooped Shawn Michaels' ass up until the end when Kane came in. It's gotta be Kane! And then Kane and Shawn Michaels won that match, but because of Kane.
Yeah.
Me being a Shawn Michaels fan, I knew that he was in the first Hell in a Cell match. Me being a Shawn Michaels fanboy.
Yeah. So we get... Yeah. Stone Cold... I believe was the Owen incident in 98 or 97?
The Owen incident?
Not Owen's death, but Owen's...
Owen doing the pile driver? Oh. I think that was 97.
Okay. So, yeah, that came into play. Was the beginning of 97 the Mike Tyson incident? No, that was not...
No.
That was 98.
That was 98.
Because that was WrestleMania 14.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, first we'll talk about the character of Vince McMahon.
I think the character of Vince McMahon is probably one of the best heels in wrestling history.
Yes. Mr. McMahon came to really start being a heel when he forced he
started being a heel after the screw job. Everyone fucking...
Yeah. But he forces Stone Cold, to vacate the IC title because he cannot defend it. And so we get these great segments where Stone Cold is back home and being interviewed, and he puts the pictures of Jim Ross and Vince on a deer and shoots them with arrows. And we come to the heading point where he stunners Vince McMahon for the first time, and Vince sells it like shit.
Vince sells it. That's the worst. That's the worst stunner selling. Well, no, Linda McMahon actually did the worst selling of a stunner I've ever seen. Until Linda McMahon did it, that was the worst selling of a stunner I'd ever seen. But
Michael Cole later.
And Michael Cole, no.
Michael Cole got right back up.
That's true. But but I think the point was, it wasn't. I don't think anybody cared the way he sold it. It was the fact that he stunned Vince McMahon. People didn't care how Vince McMahon sold it in the audience. They believed that the dude just beat the hell out of his boss. Who cares how the boss looks like?
And just the picture of Stone Cold going away in handcuffs became iconic. Because that wouldn't be the first time. I mean, that wouldn't be the last time he went away in handcuffs.
No, Stone Cold went away in handcuffs quite a few times.
And that wouldn't be the last time a wrestler went away in handcuffs. Because Triple H later turned that to his advantage as well. So we have Stone Cold, and Vince McMahon just constantly at each other. We have Mick Foley coming up through the ranks.
Yep.
Did you just say who when I said Mick Foley?
That's what we do.
Oh, okay. Because that would have been hilarious. We have.
And yes, DX was. It was officially called DX in '97.
And we have. We begin to have after WrestleMania 14, where Stone Cold beats Shawn Michaels, and he beats DX because of Mike Tyson.
And this is a weird thing I just want to bring up. Everyone looks back at that with the whole Mike Tyson thing, and yeah, it got huge news attention, and it got huge, big. It put WWE over. But the payoff, looking back at just that match, the payoff wasn't that good.
Well, the the feud was the whole thing, especially
the feud was great. The build-up,
especially with the very start of it, where Vince McMahon is so fucking pissed, but when the glass shatters, he's like, "Oh, you son of a bitch, you've ruined my moment." He's like, but Austin, don't you dare fucking ruin it. Ruins it.
The build-up was fucking brilliant. Austin and Tyson was awesome. Shawn Michaels, I fucking love heel Shawn Michaels. How could I complain about that? But when you look at that match, Tyson does literally nothing up until the very end, which he does a fast count.
Yeah. And then he punches people out.
And then he punched Shawn Michaels out, which was Shawn Michaels' last match up until 2002 because of his injury. So it wasn't the greatest match ever as well in either man's career because Shawn Michaels was injured.
No. But I'm going to have to look up some information.
Are you trying to look up? I might know it.
Let's see. That was WrestleMania.
WrestleMania 14.
That was first. Okay, so now we go into the lead up to the next WrestleMania.
Oh, WrestleMania 15?
And we have the first instance of the Austin Rock feud.
And this was actually 98 was the first time that they were actually referring to their brand as Attitude as well. That's when the WWF Attitude logo was created. Was in '98. That's when they started using that logo. As well.
So The Rock got big push through the Nation of Domination,
Yes.
and he was the defined star of that stable.
Of that stable, yes, because there was Farouk, who he went on to the APA, which was fucking awesome.
We're gonna talk about this in other when we talk about factions, but when you look at certain stables, you see the youngest guy in that stable who just goes right up to the top like a rocket. In the case of this one, it was Rock. Later on in Evolution, it was Randy Orton. So The Rock becomes and then The Rock gets basically handed the belt by the corporation.
Mm-hmm.
And Austin is the anti-corp. He is the constant thorn in the corporation, so of course the two collide. And
the feud between The Rock and Austin, like I said, is probably the best thing that The Rock's done. Was that feud with Stone Cold? I mean, the throwing the titles over the belt, over the bridge thing, that's an iconic thing, where Rock throws Stone Cold's title over the bridge.
Well, actually, Austin threw the title.
I thought he threw Austin's title as well.
No, if I remember correctly, Rock threw Austin in the river.
That was it. It was Austin in the river, not Austin's belt.
Yeah. Stone Cold proceeds to throw the belt in the river, along with some scuba gear.
And Rock goes after Austin, that's it.
And Rock kidnaps Austin and throws him in a river.
That's it.
Which, that's a little far. You can't win your belt off him if you can't pin him, Rock.
That's probably the thing I point to when I think of that feud, was like, this is fucking awesome right here.
And then, well, I think, personally, I think we all have to look at, and we're talking about the history of Raw here, and I know we're talking about WrestleMania a lot, but the capstone of the Attitude Era, by the way, we forgot to mention the young talent that is rising up through the ranks in this era.
The young talent at
the Brood.
The Brood.
The Brood comes onto the scene.
Edge and Christian, and who were managed at that time by Gangrel, who couldn't talk worth shit and couldn't.
Well, they didn't find that out until the live promo where Edge took the mic and went away with it.
And also Gangrel, who couldn't really wrestle either. I'm not gonna lie.
He was okay wrestling. He was.
It were nothing fucking special.
No, he was just run of the mill, but he was okay.
Only people remember Gangrel is because of his fucking entrance.
Yes, the entrance is amazing. And Gangrel also helped push the Hardys at some point.
Yeah. That's another one. When did the Hardys join? No, that would be late '90s, wouldn't it?
Yeah, they're around the same time as Edge and Christian, really.
Yeah, so the Hardys at that time. And the problem with the Attitude Era, I find, is there was a good up-and-coming talent, but a lot of the talent during the Attitude Era wasn't that good.
And some of the talent they squandered.
And some of the talent they squandered, there was Rikishi. Yeah, they squandered.
And there was the whole angle with Rikishi where Ali and I talked about this before, where the Bad Man theme was an awesome theme song, and he could have been the next Yokozuna like heel. He could have been the next really big guy to be a heel.
And then he joined.
And then Triple H was revealed to be the the bad guy, and it was like, oh.
And also Rikishi joined Too Cool.
Well, Rikishi was too cool before that.
Oh, he was before Batman? I thought it was after Batman. Not bad.
I'm pretty sure he was before that.
Yeah, well, there was Too Cool, which was... It was friggin' Scotty Too Hottie and Jerry Lawler's kid. It wasn't going to be anything great.
But it was awesome for what it was.
What it was awesome. Don't know if it's too late for the time, but there was right to censor.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's outside the Attitude Era and more towards Ruthless.
No, I know what you're talking about, Steve.
Stevie Richards in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
Don't know if that's more towards what people call the Ruthless Aggression Era.
You have Trish Stratus and Lita.
Trish Stratus and Lita. And that's the thing that I don't watch Divas Wrestling now because it's god awful. But Divas Wrestling back then was tolerable. Because although it was still about the tits and ass, it was tits and ass that could wrestle.
I will fight you that there's still talent in there, that you have the only female in the graduate of the Heart Dungeon in WWE, but they don't seem intent on doing it.
Yeah, but they don't use her.
Yeah. But
how can I enjoy her wrestling?
I will argue that the match on Raw this past week was good, but
I need to watch that. So.
But yeah, that's the thing about the Attitude Era was honestly really hilarious. Was that I believe like on SmackDown you would have a tables match, and then after that, like the next week, you would have a bra and panties match between the two. It was really weird. That was weird. But so we have all these. This is what makes, and the big thing about the Attitude Era is it was the crowd that popped for anything.
Yes.
And Too Cool comes out and they erupt like the closest thing they have now is the crowd reaction to Cena. And that's not even close to that.
That's scary.
So we then have, leading into I think the capstone in the Attitude Era, towards the tail end of it, you have WrestleMania 17.
Oh, we need to go through a few more things then.
Okay. Well, would you mind coming to the mic?
Sorry. WrestleMania 17. We're at what year are we at right now? 98.
Yeah, we were at 98.
We were at 98. Okay.
Well, we have to go through the whole history of Raw, so I'm not.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. We do have to go through the whole history. One of the things I want to talk about is January 4th, 1999. What?
Okay.
Now, what does that date mean to you? Me just saying that date.
January 4th, 99. Well, actually, Jericho's debut was the tail end of 99.
Not Jericho's debut. January 4th, 99 is a key point in wrestling history for both Raw and WCW.
No, that wasn't the purchase of WCW.
January 4th, 1999. Mick Foley wins the WWF title.
Yes.
Meanwhile, on WCW, they gave away this previously taped result because it was taped and a taped episode.
And that's the same night as the Finger Poke of Doom.
And it's the same night as the Finger Poke of Doom, yes. And
Kevin Nash will go on to this day to say that night wasn't the night that changed wrestling history, even though he's a total
Kevin
stupid
Nash,
jackass.
Yes, Mick Foley would win the title.
Stupid jackass who booked that shit.
Mick Foley would win the title, and Tony Schiavone was apparently on the orders of Eric Bischoff told to say, That's gonna put some butts in the seats. And the moment he said that comment, over 600,000 viewers turned over to watch Raw. And this was also the night the Thing of Doom was held, which a lot of people say was basically the final nail in the WCW coffin.
Well, yeah. They also arrested Goldberg that night, their biggest up-and-coming face. So
And
that
they
was
also
stupid.
arrested Goldberg. And then, of course, 1999 was also another bad year, because it was also the year Owen Hart died.
Yeah.
Over the Edge, May 23rd,
We
1990.
we skipped over Raw having the first Hall of Fame inductee in the early 90s.
Yes, in the early 90s, the very first person to go to the Hall of Fame, Andre the Giant.
And Owen Hart, yes, passes away, unfortunately.
Owen Hart.
And the first ever dedication episode.
The first person to ever get a dedication episode. The entire following Raw was an episode dedicated to the memory of Hart.
And I have to address this. I'm sorry. Whoever in the Hart family got fucking upset about Stone Cold leaving a beer for Owen at the tail end of the program, get over it. That's Austin's thing. Even if Owen was like off on the wagon or whatever, that's Stone Cold's thing. That he left the beer for him is incredibly special to Stone Cold. Especially considering he never received an apology, but,
Well, the story for the no apology thing is just Brett told him to apologize, but he just kind of forgot. He went home to his family and just kind of forgot to call Austin, and
that's a big thing to forget.
it's a big thing to forget. Sorry I kind of broke your neck there, buddy.
I kind of threatened your livelihood.
But, you know, they're still, I mean, although Austin may not have fully forgiven Owen for that, you don't want a man to die.
Yeah, at the same time, yeah.
You don't want a man to die.
And that was really an iconic and sweet image to me, was Austin leaving the beer in the ring. Here's one to you, buddy. And
yeah.
leaves.
Yeah.
So.
And then obviously there was the This Is Your Life segment between Mick Foley and Rock, which achieved some of its highest ratings ever, where Mankind and The Rock had their whole This Is Your Life series. And Mankind presented people from The Rock's past, and that was really strange. That was a really strange segment.
It was pretty funny, though.
Then we have September 25th, the year 2000. The day...
Did you skip over WrestleMania 17?
WrestleMania 17, yes, I must have done. Go ahead, talk about WrestleMania 17.
The capstone of I think, the Attitude Era.
You think that's where you think that's where the Attitude Era ends?
Well, no, I think that's a pinnacle point in the Attitude Era. That was the pinnacle of the tag team division.
That was the pinnacle of tag team division.
I'm
going to ask you, is WrestleMania 17 your favorite WrestleMania?
It is definitely one of my favorites. I don't really... It's hard to choose that as a favorite because there's so many there's some really, really good ones out there.
Yeah.
And let's see.
We are going to have a topic dedicated to WrestleMania as well. I just want to let you know that.
Okay. The tag team tournament. Tag team match, which was awesome. That's the big, and the best match of, my personal best match of the Austin Rock feud. Was at WrestleMania 17.
Was that where Austin That was the double turn.
Double turn.
Well, that was probably the greatest double turn I've ever seen.
The most shocking double turn.
And the most shocking because it was in Austin's hometown. Probably the best place to do a heel turn, I think, is in your hometown. If you're able to piss off the hometown crowd, you've done something. You've achieved something with a heel turn. That's something WWE can't do anymore, is get the hometown crowd pissed at their...
Well, I think... yeah, well, it's for certain, like, CM Punk could do whatever he could in front of Chicago. He could kill a baby.
And they'd
he
love
would
it.
still get cheered.
He'd still get cheered. He could hold a gun to a puppy's head and they'd think it's brilliant in Chicago. There's some crowds where that's just not going to work, but that's also fault on the company. When was the last time a heel didn't get cheered in his hometown?
Yeah.
Unless his hometown fucking hates him too. Even John Cena, who gets a mixed reaction, gets cheered in his hometown.
Well, not lately, but lately he's gotten very mixed reactions there. We're gonna get there. So we have that. And then after that we have heel Austin running around, which is very funny.
It's funny, but it isn't.
Yeah, it's kind of.
It's.
Him singing to Vince McMahon, though, is hilarious.
It was hilarious, but he didn't like the heel run. I didn't personally like the heel run. I liked the way the heel turn was pulled off. But you can't make it... I mean, you can say that Austin, when he was a face, he was doing heelish shit. But people loved him for it. That's the case of a guy doing heelish stuff and being cheered for it gone right. That's basically what they wanted to do with Randy Orton.
Yeah. And that didn't work out because he's a natural born...
and get cheered for it.
That didn't work because he's a natural born heel.
Honestly, my problem with like modern wrestling nowadays is they're trying too hard to relive classic glories. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're trying to do the same thing that worked before instead of doing something that works that isn't the same.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'd say... Yeah, I wouldn't say 17 was the end of the Attitude Era. I'd say 2000 was the end of the Attitude Era.
I'd say, honestly, I would have dragged it a bit further and said the retiring of Stone Cold or the retiring of The Rock was...
Yeah, I don't know.
Honestly,
but,
I thought it ended when Rock jumped ship. Well, it might have been earlier than that. When Triple H came back?
I don't know. To me, it was 2000, but anyway.
Actually, I thought it ended when the invasion started.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that. You could argue it ended when WWE...
Oh, yeah, invasion. That's a good point. But anyway, March 2001. Sorry, I got my dates mixed up. What happened on September 25th? Oh, just Raw moved networks. Okay. I'm looking at, like, history of... Like, I'm looking at, like, stuff to look at to say interesting factoids, and it's just, oh, they moved networks. Oh, joy. I know, but in March 2001, the very final edition of Nitro aired, and the show began with Vince McMahon making a short statement about his recent purchase. He bought WCW. And then, obviously, here comes Shane McMahon out, and this started the Invasion storyline.
Which would have been better if the first WCW match that they chose to have wasn't Booker T versus Buff Bagwell.
Yeah. Yeah.
That tainted...
You christened your new show with a Buff Bagwell match.
Vince... That shaped Vince's perception of WCW permanently, and Yes, it did, Mega Fighter. Shut up. I know my shit. Some wise guy in the chat.
He's really good at shit. It's
Yes, I'm
Shaq.
very
No, what
good
I'm
at-
saying is that the first match would have been better if it did involve Buff Bagwell at all.
Oh,
Like, why the fuck would you ever hire Buff Bagwell?
yes, that is.
I don't know. That's WCW and WWE.
Because he looks good.
No, he really does. But yeah, the invasion storyline that could have worked. One of the that's a good idea, performed so terribly.
Yeah. I think the saving grace of that thing, or at least the only good thing that came out of that, was the feud between Chris Jericho and Stone Cold. The only really good thing to come out of that, and that wasn't part of the real invasion.
God, that storyline sucked so much balls. And Raw's War just became known as Raw. Yeah, just became known as Raw. And for a lot of people, 2001 is the year that the Attitude Era ended, and including for me, the 2001 was the year Attitude Era ended. And that made a lot of people upset. And since 2001, we've always had the bring back the Attitude Era argument.
Which we're not going to touch on I think if we have a full Attitude Era topic, we'll talk about the shitty moments of the Attitude Era, but we're not going to.
And we will tell you why you should never ever bring back the Attitude Era ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
Katie Vick.
That's one of them. That's one of them. But anyway, shall we go on basically to what some call the ruthless aggression era? I suppose how short it was.
Well, that really more taking off on SmackDown, I thought.
Yeah, that took more off on SmackDown, and indeed, 2002.
The one thing, the thing that was taking off on Raw at the time is what later became known as the Reign of Terror.
Yes, well, 2002, we had SmackDown, the creation of SmackDown.
Which we will talk more about later.
Which we'll talk more about later, but
why
yes.
did they make SmackDown?
It was good at the start.
It was very good at the start.
Good.
So I was wondering why they made SmackDown.
The reason they did this is because they'd purchased WCW and ECW. So obviously they had talent. They had this influx of talent that they weren't sure about. They had this big cruiserweight division from WCW. They had the hardcore stuff from ECW. They didn't. They couldn't put everyone on Raw.
At first, they were going to have Vince was going to run WCW separately.
Yeah.
And have WCW have its own thing.
Yeah.
He had even negotiated for purchase of TV time for this. Then Buff Bagwell versus Booker T happened, and that went all down the drain.
It's because of the invasion storyline, he decided not to do that, basically. And so instead of
just think, they could have had Lance Storm as Booker T's opponent, and that would have changed the history of wrestling, because that wouldn't have been a match so shitty that Vince completely flushed that idea down the toilet.
But yeah, basically because he had such an influx of talent, he couldn't put them all on one show and use them all on one show, so he created SmackDown. And they called it SmackDown because of The Rock, basically, and the whole SmackDown hotel, laying the SmackDown on your ass and shit like that. That's why he calls it his show.
That makes me wish they called it WWF on your ass.
On your ass.
Basically because... it is basically because of The Rock, and that's why he calls it his show. It's because he used the word SmackDown before SmackDown was created, so...
Alright, so... SmackDown, later... We're going to touch on this later.
And this was actually also 2002. 2002 was also 2002 was also the year that WWF became WWE.
SmackDown became territory for Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, um, uh, John Cena, Kurt Angle.
It was basically the young up-and-comers.
Yeah, well, and some established talent.
That's still established talent, but it was basically an up-and-comer show.
Chris Benoit. And most notably later on, The Undertaker.
Yeah, that became Undertaker's show later on, yeah.
But we'll get into that when we talk about it. Yes. Actually, quick question. What year was the Ministry of Darkness?
That was in the 90s.
Okay, we forgot to touch on that. We'll touch on that when we talk about Attitude Era, but The Undertaker became... If he wasn't big before, he became gigantic in the eyes of...
Yeah, I think he was American Badass at this time.
Yes, he turned into American Badass. He had the ladder match with Jeff Hardy.
Probably the worst Undertaker persona was the American Badass.
He had some good moments.
Had good moments, but that wasn't the Undertaker. That's, hi, I'm actually the guy that plays the Undertaker, and I'm gonna ride my motorcycle around the ring.
He had exhausted the gimmick at that point in his eyes. And if he had continued at that point, this was really, I think that still the American Badass was a key figure in The Undertaker, because if he had just continued that point, he would have just gotten tired of it and retired if he didn't have something else to do. Because he was just tired of the gimmick. So that's how the American Badass came about. Is can we do this? And he's like, sure, let's do it. It worked for a while. So Raw, we have the Reign of Terror. I think the big point in Raw history, if we're going to move forward, I think if I have permission to skip to 2004.
Yeah, you have permission.
2004 is the birth of a new faction, if I'm correct.
Evolution, you on about?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it was around 03, 04.
And I will go on and on about this when we get to factions, about Evolution. They have Triple H as the leader, Ric Flair as the seasoned veteran, and Batista as the muscle, and Randy Orton as the young gun in the crowd. And this Evolution was most definitely created to push Orton and Batista.
Yes.
It didn't work with Batista. It just didn't work. Because as much as you try to push Batista, he has never gotten better. He's just been, not very good. So we have that going on. Also SmackDown and Raw. SmackDown became Edge's show later on as well.
Also, they had the title unification around that time, 2002, and it was just the Undisputed Championship, and
Chris Jericho's the first one.
First one, and it was just.
And he dropped the title to Triple H, and then they brought in a new belt. So Chris Jericho's reign as Undisputed Champion is not that good, but the fact that he was Undisputed Champion is great. I remember reading that moment in his book Undisputed, where he talks about how he was moping about how he was going to be handled, and then he's just sitting there with the two titles, and he's like, wait a minute, I've got two titles here, I'm awesome. This is awesome. So yeah, 2004 is the year that Evolution came about, and it was a revolution in um, for the young talent. This was about the same year that John Cena uh, really came to Raw came about as the big heel.
Thank God, I loved heel Cena. Bring that guy back.
Yeah. I think by this time Brock Lesnar is coming and gone.
I will never like Brock Lesnar. The man helped destroy the Cruiserweight division. Fuck him.
Well, I blame Hornswoggle, but you have Evolution comes about and rocks the they come out and this is like the big young talent push is in Randy Orton actually.
Yeah, because he went on to do the Legend Killer thing after that.
Yeah. Well, Evolution's the thing, like, when you look at factions, you look at who they made a star. And Evolution undisputably made Randy Orton a star. His first big title win, which I believe was the Intercontinental title. Am I correct in that?
What was that, sorry?
I said Orton's title win, which was the Intercontinental title.
I think so.
So they have the big moment in Evolution I can remember is when they have Orton up on their shoulders. He's celebrating, and everything is right in Orton's world. He's achieved the pinnacle, what at this point is the pinnacle of his career. And then
it was the World Heavyweight title, because he was the youngest World Heavyweight champion.
Oh, it's the World Heavyweight. Oh, okay. That's even better. I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, it was the World Heavyweight Championship.
So, and then Triple H gets the thumbs down, and they brutally beat him down for no reason.
Although you had a lot of good things like that, you also had a lot of bad things. In the early 2000s, you had Kane losing his mask. Was a bad idea.
Well, no, at the time he needed a refresher, and it worked for a while.
He needed a refresher, but
it worked for a while.
Worked for a while, but after a while, he needed another refresher.
Yeah.
You had the Spirit Squad.
Which, yeah, that wasn't good. Even with Dolph Ziggler being in it, it wasn't that good.
You had guys like Daivari and Hassan.
Hassan's early gimmick, Ali and I talked about this, was pretty good actually. The whole idea behind it, like, I'm Arabic American. I'm an American. Screw you for discriminating against me. But then he had terrorists kidnap the Undertaker, and it was, yeah.
And you know what? I got to talk about this. June 25th, 2007.
Oh, we're skipping quite ahead.
Well, there's not very much to talk about, really, in the early 2000s.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about the 2000, we have to talk about. Oh, you're going to that era. Okay. Well, I know that date. Before you talk about that,
he knows where I'm going with that.
Exactly where you're going.
He knows where I'm going with this.
We had the moment where the Vanilla Midgets hugged at WrestleMania and killed
Vanilla Midgets.
and killed wrestling.
Thank you, Kevin Nash.
The two champion vanilla midgets.
Eddie Guerrero and Lance Storm.
And Lance Storm, yes. We have the Legend Killer gimmick is taken off to immense levels. By that time, he is soaring. And I really want that Orton back. I really want my over-the-top evil Randy Orton back.
Oh, there was also going back to stupid gimmicks and ideas. Shawn Michaels and God versus the McMahons. That was stupid. Shawn Michaels and God versus the McMahons. That was stupid. Though we did have the return of Shawn Michaels in 2002, which I was very happy about. But yeah, then we had Shawn Michaels and God. That was stupid. We had the debut of the Great Khali.
Oh.
And the very first, and I think the only Punjabi prison match.
The one they quit halfway in, I thought.
Originally, that was set up to be, someone had brought up the plans for an exploding death match. And for some reason, someone in the back turned it into the Punjabi prison match.
How the fuck do you turn an exploding death match into that?
I don't know. They were getting plans together of the actual, like, how they did it in Japan safely without killing anyone. And then, for some reason, I forget who in the back turned it into.
Oh, and I remember who else we got. We had Heidenreich, guys.
Oh God. It's
We had Shelton Benjamin actually beating Triple H, and that being the only good thing he ever did in his career.
The tag team division was great with Benjamin and Haas.
The greatest tag team ever.
Yes.
We had the feud between Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar. That was okay.
That was hilarious, if I remember correctly.
We had the epic feud. We had the epic moment of the ring breaking when Brock Lesnar and Big Show the superplex off the top.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of other really shitty stuff that happened. There was a lot of it. Oh, there was the time Heidenreich actually teamed up with Animal from the Road Warriors, and he became a Road Warrior.
Yeah.
It's like Hulk without all the good things.
Yes.
So not Hulk at all.
Yeah.
We had, if you're talking about Heidenreich, you had the moment where he raped Michael Cole.
He raped Michael Cole.
Anything with Bobby Lashley.
He had
Bobby Lashley. That was SmackDown, wasn't it?
We had that guy who came out on a Segway, but I can't remember his name.
Simon Dean.
Oh,
Simon Dean.
You forgot Umaga.
Umaga
was awesome.
God rest his soul. Umaga. Yeah, early 2000s was a weird time. It was a weird time. Let's just say that. We're gonna go to this date now.
God help us.
June 25th, 2007 was originally scheduled to be a 3-hour special memorial show for the storyline death of Mr. McMahon, because 2 weeks earlier, and this is another stupid idea, he was presumably murdered by a bomb planted in his limousine. However, the tribute was cancelled on the very day, the exact day it was due to air, after the real-life death of Chris Benoit and his family.
And they changed the show to a dedication show to Chris Benoit. And here's what I'm going to say on the matter. WWE has been criticized by the public for airing that show before any investigation as to the deaths.
Well,
And
how
here's
else?
the thing.
I'm just wondering how else would they have done it? He died the same day the show happened.
No, he died Sunday.
He died Sunday. They'd found out.
He died Sunday on Night of Champions.
Yeah, they'd found out on the Monday, which was supposed to be the special memorial show for McMahon, because he was.
By the way, before Night of Champions was supposed to be CM Punk versus Chris Benoit, which would have been awesome.
Been a great fucking match.
Yeah. So, here's the thing I'm going to say. No one, and I mean no one, in WWE would have suspected Chris Benoit to do what he did.
No, not again. No one. In real life, and regardless of what people say now, not a single person, fan of wrestling or not, could have told you they'd have expected Chris Benoit to do that.
And if you look at the...
If anyone says they expected him to do that, you're full of shit.
If, in the few segments that Jericho did, the few interviews he chose to do over that, he specifically said, I believe on Larry King, he said, I would have left my kids with Chris Benoit without question. Because he was a great father, from my experience. We got together and talked about our kids all the time. That was pretty much all we talked about. And
now, the reason I bring this up is in our history of Raw is because after this was the radical change in Raw, and all history of Benoit has been erased from Raw. Okay, the show was after the facts came out about how Benoit and his family died. They pulled the tribute episode, from international markets. Several channels announced the episode was being withheld for legal reasons. A substitute Raw, hosted by Todd Grisham, was created, featuring recaps of John Cena's WWE Championship victories. How bad that show must have been. God. We're going to show you recaps of John Cena's Championship victories? Oh, man, I didn't see that. Jeez.
Like that one where he beat Randy Orton. Or that other one where he beat Randy Orton.
Mainly, though, it was the ones that had occurred over the past year. And the episode started with a message from Vince McMahon, which originally aired on ECW. Some countries received WWE programming up to 3 weeks late, had all Chris Benoit matches edited out. And in December, Raw celebrated its 15th anniversary, but it was featured...
I remember the day after I remember on ECW, after the Raw that Chris Benoit had the tribute on, they had pretty much say they were never going to reference him again in like a special message from McMahon or something.
They were never going to reference him again. Instead, they were going to try and make it a show dedicated to his family and not him.
Well, in Vince's defense, he had to do that.
Had to.
Because the media were killing him. The media were absolutely swallowing this up, and this was
because there was the association with the drugs. There was the fact
this was every has-been, never was coming out to tell stories on news. Yeah, thanks, superstar Billy Graham.
There was Lex Luger. There was Lex Luger making comments.
Yeah, Lex Luger, Billy Graham, every has-been and never was in professional wrestling talk who never knew Chris Benoit.
Everyone basically who needs to learn that they don't know shit about the modern wrestling era.
I mean, even Chris Jericho, who was the closest friend alive at that time, the closest friend Benoit ever had was obviously Eddie Guerrero, which we skipped over Eddie Guerrero's death. But
we can talk about that,
but there's not much to say about that. It was tragic, and we lost.
This was tragic. This was tragic too.
This was tragic too, even more so because the deaths of innocent people. But
could have been prevented though.
I
don't know, man.
Well, from what I hear,
like looking back at the Eddie Guerrero tribute show, like when I saw like Chris Benoit, dude had fucking lost his brain. That was it. That was it. When Eddie died, all sanity was thrown out the window. I think when you actually see that episode and you see how Benoit reacts, and just how fucking broken he became because of that. Yeah, I don't know if that could have been prevented after Eddie's death.
Well, here's the thing. He did carry on for a few more years after Eddie's death, because Eddie's death was in, 2004, 2005?
Depression takes a long time before you resort to something like that.
It's linked to a lot of things, especially his repeated head trauma.
Repeated head trauma, drugs. Apparently there was something going on with woman at the time, his wife, who was woman, for those who don't know. There was rumors that she was doing something with him, abuse-wise. I don't know whether that was true.
That'd be hard as shit to abuse Chris Benoit.
Yeah, but I don't know. I was going to say, you seem like the kind of guy who wouldn't hit a woman. But...
Yeah, that's true. I think we have to get off this, but
yeah, we get off.
This is a moment that, yes, it nearly destroyed professional wrestling when the media decided to have a circus about it. Thankfully, the next biggest tragedy or whatever happened, and it took the eyes off of Vince McMahon for once. And he said, okay.
What was that one?
I don't know. It was
2007. When did...
What tragedy that came after that one?
Or it was the next big world event or whatever that the media immediately...
Might have been the 7/7 bombings.
Oh. But they were talking about in wrestling. I'm like, what?
No.
Might have been the 7/7 bombings in London.
Yeah, that was it. It's like, oh look, London got bombed. Let's look over here, and then immediately Vince McMahon is like, Jesus Christ! Thank God they've gotten their eyes off of me for once. Not that the London bombings were anything.
No, there were nothing to be relieved about at all.
Yeah, no, but it's just that.
I get what you're saying. The man was thankful that the media had finally turned away from him.
Yeah.
Man, after what happened with Benoit, this one lady named Nancy Grace had like 17 different fucking wrestlers on her show talking shit about Vince McMahon.
Oh yeah, Nancy Grace's show was really... If you want to see a really funny bit of Chris Jericho completely owning someone, watch Chris Jericho on the Nancy Grace show. Where you see the moment where it was someone substituting for Nancy Grace too. By the way, Nancy Grace is a terrible person in general, but she asked the question, was Chris Benoit being demoted when he was moved to ECW? You see Chris Jericho's eyes light up like, oh, this bitch has no idea what she's talking about. So, yeah, that is highly entertaining.
Yes.
Moving on. 2008, 2009, there's not much really to talk about.
There really isn't between 2008 and 2009. There was the whole storyline between Vince McMahon and Donald Trump.
Yeah,
that was
something.
Wasn't that when they were starting to push into the PG thing?
Yeah. They pushed to the PG era.
That was the PG thing. We had
the thing is, the way they did the PG was just making it as boring as possible.
Made it as boring as possible. Thank God. Thank God Linda McMahon never became senator, because the idea of a McMahon being a president in the future, my God.
I think Vince McMahon as president would be absolutely hilarious, but...
Oh, Jesus. That's
President
scary.
President.
That'd be so... Oh my God, no, don't put that...
Have the entire cabinet join the Kiss My Ass Club.
Don't put that idea in my head of Vince McMahon as president.
I'm writing
please.
that fan fiction now.
Oh, God.
Sir, Bin Laden's issued a threat to the... Sir, Osama's issued a threat to the state. I want to see him in the ring, damn
it. We could use this for a storyline. But, okay, well, yeah, we had that feud. We also had, remember the guest hosts of Raw, guys?
Bob Barker was the only good one.
Remember when the guys from The Hangover decided to come and host Raw?
Well, Zach Galifianakis actually likes wrestling, but other than that...
Yeah, Galifianakis didn't host Raw. It was one of the guys and that Asian dude.
Remember when they got, like, I don't know his name, but it was like Jeremy Piven or something, but he sounds like he was so staid, like so fake. Welcome to Raw.
Actually, another good one was The Muppets.
The Muppets, yes.
That was another.
So we're approaching on recent years, and...
Oh, here's another one, actually. We had the debut of Vicky Guerrero as general manager of SmackDown.
Yeah. So the history of Raw, leading up to this, we have to go through. The Miz, we had Money in the Bank, which was pretty good. The Miz cashed in on Randy Orton, which was hilarious. The Miz was okay.
We had this slight return also, a small, not very long-lasting return of the Monday Night Raw was when TNA decided to change to Mondays, but then like a week later...
Monday night.
It failed so horribly with a rating of 30, like .30.
That's not even... That wasn't a Monday Night War, that was a Monday Night Massacre.
Monday Night Genocide.
Yeah, just... You're gonna move your shit to Monday night? Okay. Stomp, stomp, stomp.
Stomp.
Okay. 2011.
2011. Raw becomes the Raw Super Show.
Well, no, before that. We have to talk about it. It's the pivotal turning point that Raw became cool again, supposedly, for a little while.
Oh, the CM Punk shoot promo?
The CM Punk shoot promo. Wherein he said exactly what he thought of the company. And the company instantly got better for a few weeks.
For a few weeks.
Oh, well, we missed the Nexus, but... I'll talk about it.
So did everyone else.
First 2 weeks looks like threat, rest of a couple months, complete losers.
Well, we'll talk about the Nexus when we talk about factions. I think the Nexus could have been salvaged if they ever wanted to, but they never seemed to really want to commit to salvaging the Nexus. So CM Punk delivers the shot heard round the world, the pipe bomb heard round the world.
Yeah, the pipe bomb.
In a Stone Cold t-shirt.
He makes pipe bomb a usable term in WWE, even though he did use it in the Indies. He made it a usable term in the WWE for a cool promo.
Yeah, and then he wins at Money in the Bank unbelievably. I mean, everybody in the IWC was speculating, the internet wrestling community was speculating that okay, they're either going to have Cena win, because Punk is leaving, most definitely leaving. So they're either going to have, like, Punk win the title, and then Del Rio's going to come out and cash in, or Vince is going to screw him over. And all of those things almost happened in the match, and it was hilarious. It's like, oh, Vince coming out for a screw job, and John Cena decks John Laurinaitis. GTS, Punk wins. Okay, he's calling for Del Rio. He kicks Del Rio in the head and runs away. Just, that was, and that stirred interest in WWE again, because it was like, wow. It's now called the WWE Summer of Punk, but that was just amazing storytelling leading up through Money in the Bank.
Yeah.
How they handled it afterward could have been. I see their point of having to have Punk return immediately because they needed a match for SummerSlam. They needed something big for one of their big four shows. I can see that. The handling of Rey Mysterio is kind of weird.
Yeah.
Just, Rey Mysterio wins the championship. He has to defend it later against Cena. What? Okay. Cena wins. Okay. Punk comes out with his championship. Okay.
All kinds of fucked up going on in this show.
Yeah.
And I think we need now to bring it to the modern day, right up to now. So, Raw has had over 1,000 episodes. CM Punk's the champion. He cuts an awesome, goddamn awesome promo on The Rock. We're heading into Royal Rumble.
Your arms are a little too short to box with God.
Fuck yes. I needed a cigarette after that promo, and I don't smoke.
I started using crack.
Were your pants wet?
They were. I've yet to see this Monday Night Raw, so I'm hoping it's good.
It's okay. It's not as good as you would hope the 20th anniversary show would be.
I'm hoping Punk does something good. As long as Punk is the Punk I know and love, I'm happy.
He doesn't have that much of a promo space on.
Now, Rob, you're not helping me here. You're not luring me in to watch this show.
It's a decent show. If just for Ric Flair, it's a decent show.
Oh, Ric Flair's on it? I'm watching.
Yes.
You've sold me on that now, dude.
Woo!
Woo! Please say he elbow. Don't ruin this for me. I'm gonna pray that he elbow drops the jacket. Every time Ric Flair is on TV, I hope he elbow drops his jacket.
Do you want to know?
I don't want to know. No, don't ruin it.
Okay.
You're gonna ruin it if he does or doesn't. I don't want it ruined. It's a surprise. Okay. It's gotta be a moment to surprise. God damn it.
Okay.
So that's Raw right now, up to its 20th year anniversary. Guys, I have one question before we head into the Vince Russo booking game. What do you think's in the future for Raw?
Well,
I can give you an even simpler question. Are we ever going to see the end of Monday Night Raw?
Inevitably, all things come to an end, but...
Is it going to be in our lifetime?
Well...
It might change names to a different show. I'm not talking about end of WWE, I'm talking about end of Raw.
End of Raw, maybe. It depends. if it's gotten to the point when Vince McMahon dies, if it's gotten to the point where it's so decrepit, I imagine Triple H will kill it and replace it with something else. Because at this point, we're counting on Triple H to be the gilded savior.
Yeah. God damn it. But, I don't know what's gonna happen on Raw. Predictions for the end of the year for Raw. I predict, I guess for WrestleMania you could say I predict Punk is probably going to lose his championship because Raw right now is being very stupid. He's probably going to lose his title at Royal Rumble. Rock is probably going to keep that title till WrestleMania and defend it against John Cena in Once in a Lifetime Part 2. Actually.
Yes. I heard the best
Once
thing
in a
on the
lifetime
forums
too. I guess not.
The best thing I've heard on the forums, and shout out to whoever it is on the Splitting forums who said this. I guess Once in a Lifetime only counted for some of the Make-A-Wish kids Cena met.
Oh,
dude, that's not even funny.
God damn it.
I laughed when I saw it. But
well, my prediction, it could go two ways. It could go either the stupid way, which is the way Raw will most likely do, where Rock wins the title and goes to WWE, to WrestleMania, and defends his title against John Cena in Twice in a Lifetime. Except this time it's personal. Or Punk keeps it till WrestleMania. Because it's rumored he's facing Undertaker. That's the only reason I'm saying he faces Undertaker, people. Rob reads dirt sheets and likes to tell us about it, even though I don't care. Is that Punk is rumored to be facing Taker at WrestleMania. Hoping, if this is true, he keeps his title to WrestleMania, faces Taker at WrestleMania for the title, and wins.
Title versus career?
Title versus career. That's the way you do that. That's the way you beat the streak. And you have it with the one guy right now who's the only guy I can see doing that.
Mm-hmm.
CM Punk will be bright as the fucking sun if he does that.
At that point, what does CM Punk do? If he beats the streak, there is nothing more that he has to accomplish. Well, game over. He wins.
No, I was talking about. That's what I mean by bright as the fucking sun when it comes to being pushed.
Fair, he wants to change the WWE. He's still got that ugly title to change. He's still got John Cena and Ryback basically being the main guys for his title. He's still got there's still a bunch of young guys in the company that aren't getting the shots they deserve.
Yeah.
He's still not gotten his ice cream bars.
Truly beating The Undertaker is not as important as getting those ice cream bars.
Yes. So
I just imagine during his retirement speech, left arm, microphone, right arm, popsicle.
During CM Punk's Hall of Fame speech, all you need to know is, I ended Taker Street. Good night!
All you need to know is, I got a popsicle!
Yes.
Yeah!
He's like, well, it took 20 years, but I finally got WWE ice cream bars.
Yeah. Oh, and I beat The Undertaker, by the way.
Oh, and I beat The Undertaker.
We'll fucking love Punk forever if he ever does that.
Every Punk fan in the world would love Punk forever if he does that. Screw it if he's face or heel. He could literally kill a puppy. We will love him forever.
I mean, Punk's favorite Raw moment in history is Snitsky punting a baby, so...
There will be people in the crowd asking for Punk to spit in their faces, okay? Be the heel! Spit in my face, Punk!
Okay. I bet when Punk decked that guy, people cheered for him.
Dude, I cheered. That guy, well, not the guy, because it was the wrong guy.
Yeah, because he decked the wrong guy.
Wrong guy, but I did share that Punk actually defended himself. And
Whoops.
did not get reprimanded for it.
Just spinning back fist. Whoops.
Whoopsie! Does Punk realize he decked the wrong guy? Was he told?
Yeah, he apologized for that.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, your face was not the face to punch.
Yes.
I was gonna say, does Punk know he decked the wrong guy yet? I'd laugh if like he was the only guy who did not know he decked the wrong guy, and he still walked around backstage like.
Even the guy who got decked doesn't believe him.
I think the guy who got decked believed that got offered like some WWE merchandise or seats or something, so he was quite happy. He was like, "Oh, you're giving me all this shit? Okay."
You give me a bunch of shit.
Hey!
I was just gonna laugh at Punk's
I won't sue you.
I was just gonna laugh if Punk's the only person who doesn't know that he decked the wrong guy. It's like, dude, do you remember when that guy tried to deck me and I fucking hit him? It's like, Punk, we need to tell you something.
No way.
No! Oh, shit, man. Really? That was the wrong fucking guy? Oh! Man, I feel like a dick.
So...
But I do like that. I think fans need to realize, just because it's premeditated, or as Smarks like to say, fake, doesn't mean they can't beat the shit out of you.
Because it's premeditated and their characters doesn't mean that fucking with them will not make them pissed off.
Fucking with them does not mean you don't...
I do recall a bit in Chris Jericho's book where he talked about MMA guys or boxers or whatever who were causing a ruckus scene in a hotel. So the wrestlers beat the shit out of them. And Chris Benoit did have someone in the crossface. Just, you know what? Just Chris Benoit's like, fuck it, crossface.
Fuck it, if you know how to... If you can actually do it where it hurts a person, because in wrestling, we're buddies, we're gonna do this safely.
I'm pretty sure people like Chris Jericho or Mark Henry could kick my ass.
Oh yeah, everyone in that...
Oh, I think Mark Henry could eat me.
Yes.
Yeah, that's... word of the wise to fans, don't fuck with wrestlers. I've seen how wrestlers react when you try and tell them it's fake, okay? There's a video out there of where a guy tells a wrestler it's fake and gets immediately decked in the face for it, okay?
And he's like, was that fake?
I mean, like... Yeah, you can say it's fake up until you have to take a bump.
Yeah. Let's see you go in the ring and do that. But anyway, I think that's Raw. That's all we can talk about with Raw. So we're going to end with something that isn't really Raw at all. It's the Vince Russo booking game. Woo! Oh, joy. So for the Vince Russo booking game, we're going to have Vince McMahon, the Cookie Monster, a raw piece of beef, and that light from the Pixar logo that somehow hops and walks and lives. You know the light I'm talking about from the Pixar logo?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, okay, from the Pixar show.
Talking about it, that abomination.
That abomination.
Just, okay, type that out real quick.
Okay, I'll type it out real quick.
The Vince McMahon's Kitchen Death Match.
So, Vince McMahon, I'll repeat it for everyone that didn't hear. So, Vince McMahon, Cookie Monster, a raw piece of beef, and that abomination from the Pixar logo.
Is the raw piece of beef a euphemism for Vince McMahon's penis?
No, it's a literal raw piece of beef.
I don't know why, but I just imagine an Iron Chef match. Where it's Vince McMahon versus the Cookie Monster, and the secret ingredient is beef. Beef!
But you have to include that abomination. But you also have to include that abomination from the Pixar logo.
He's a lamp. He's lighting the fucking stage. While Vince McMahon and the Cookie Monster cook with meat.
I told you this was gonna be fucking random, guys. I'm gonna pick a raw piece of meat. And that abomination from the Pixar logo.
And then the light kind of wanders off, and everyone gets pissed. Come back here, fucking asshole!
I literally don't know. I've got to think here. God damn.
Yeah, why did you... You have to have an idea before you can give us one of these, because... What the fuck, man?
It's a cook-off, okay?
A cook-off? That's what you're gonna do, is a cook-off?
It's the 60-minute Iron Chef match.
You've got 60 minutes to create the greatest dish of all time.
The secret ingredient is beef, and the abomination light is like hopping around lighting shit.
Who would the judges be?
Stone Cold, Big Show. He eats twice, by the way.
No, I think it would be Stone Cold, Mark Henry, and someone from the Muppets, or Sesame Street.
Stone Cold, Mark Henry. I don't fucking know. Elmo. No.
Big Bird.
Big Bird.
Okay, I've got one. It's gonna be a. I've got a way to include a raw piece of beef, but it's just the abomination from the Pixar logo that's confusing me right now. I'm going to include him in this match. It's a walking lamp, so... Okay, I've got one. It's Vince McMahon and Cookie Monster in a butcher shop brawl match. And basically, they literally go just out on the streets and find the nearest butcher shop they can. And they're basically just... and they use a raw piece of beef. Basically, the winner gets a raw piece of beef. And the way that abomination from the Pixar logo is involved, he's just there in the butcher shop trying to buy a piece of beef while the shit's going on, so he gets involved. He gets involved in the fight.
I'll pay you $50. You're a lamp, and you don't have a wallet.
And the way a person wins is by stuffing the other person into an oven.
This is what I'm going to call a lights on bright match. As a quote from JBL, it is going to be Vince McMahon versus JBL versus the Cookie Monster, and the feud starts when JBL gives Cookie Monster what Cookie Monster thinks is cookie dough, but what turns out to be a raw piece of beef.
Wait, what? We're gonna confuse this cookie dough with a raw piece of beef. Oh yeah.
It is a lights on bright match, meaning it is the abomination from the Pixar logo tied down to a pole because he moves, so you have to tie him down, and put up above the ring. The winner must take the Pixar logo abomination and beat the living crap out of his opponents with it.
Also, there should be a spot where the light abomination's son shows up, because I think he has a son or something.
Yeah, he has a little lamp son.
And they have to beat him with his son. Son, oh, Daddy.
So how do you win the lights on bright match?
You take the Pixar abomination and his son if he shows up, and you beat the shit out of your opponents with him, and when you
win the Iron Chef match.
It's an on a pole match. It's an on a pole match. So.
Wow.
You win the Iron Chef match by cooking the best meal, and beef cookies made Cookie Monster lose. Beef cookies. Because all he made was beef cookies.
Okay, so we've got the 60-minute Iron Chef match. We've got the Butcher Shop Brawl, or the Light on Bright match. Rocktown is here, so he can also possibly help us vote, because we now have to vote for who is going to be Vince Russo for the week.
Will you take my title?
Will Ali remain Vince Russo for another week, or will one of us take over? And it seems Rocktown's not here. So, If we'd like to vote, remember you cannot vote for your own.
Oh, damn it.
And if it's a tiebreaker, we will go to Rocktan.
Okay.
I'm going to go for whatever the fuck Riddler named his, because I don't remember.
The Butcher Shop Brawl match.
Yes.
What about you, Rob?
I'm gonna have to give it to the Iron Chef match.
Well, Ellie, you are Vince Russo for 2 weeks in a row because I'm also going for the Iron Chef match.
I don't know why, but it's just Vince McMahon versus Cookie Monster in a cook-off. and then he gives the food to Stone Cold. It's like, this tastes like shit. And Mark Henry's like, can I have some of that?
So next week, I don't know what we'll be talking about, but to give you guys a fair advantage, we will decide who's going to be the participants of our Vince Russo booking game. So, to be fair, each of us can come up with a person, and then for the fourth person, I don't know, we could just randomize it. So, whoever we come up with, that's going to be the participants of our Vince Russo booking game.
I got mine already.
Okay, who's your guy?
King Arthur.
King Arthur. Okay, we got King Arthur. Okay, Rob, who you got?
Okay. Queen Elizabeth II.
Queen Elizabeth II. We're following royalty here, are we?
Yes.
Okay. In that case, I'm going to go with Emperor Nero.
And the last one should be King Booker.
King Booker.
And the last one's going to be King Booker. And that's going to be next week's participants for the Vince Russo booking game.
Worst idea ever.
Best idea ever. So this was the Rope Break Podcast. Signing off is your pal Chris saying, at least we fire each other face to face.
This is Rob saying,
what the fuck was that?
I don't know, but keep recording.
I don't know.
Because now we've all signed off, so that means one thing. Oh, sorry, sign off, Allie.
Fuck. The end.
Goodbye! Internet.
Goodbye. Fuck.
Goodbye.